from the Audi Performance Studio, welcome to Jets Overtime, presented by SiriusXM.
Broncos need about 20 yards to make it a 60-yard attempt. Wilson lost the football! Rolling towards the sideline, picked up by the Jets! It's Hall! And he goes! For now, it is a touchdown on the field. It is a touchdown. This is a great job. Again, Quincy Williams coming untouched off the edge.
The icing on the cake for the New York Jets, who are now 2-3 after a 31-21 victory in Denver. 2 straight years now, the green and white have won at Mile High. Ethan Greenberg, Quincy Enunwa here for Jets Overtime. Let's bring in Anthony Becht. This is a thrilling victory, even though it was kind of a sloppy game here from the Jets overall. AB, from your perspective, what's your overall takeaway after a gritty, sloppy, yet victorious day here for the green and white?
Well, you're going to take the W, number one. Been a part of a lot of ugly wins. I know Quincy has as well. And there's a lot to correct and get better at. But, you look at this team playing 4 quarters. The first half was just, both sides, as far as both teams, it was kind of ugly throughout. But you saw the Jets came out with a little bit better plan than the Broncos did. And they started to pick it up on both sides of the ball. The run game was fantastic today. I love the pitch count for Breece Hall, and clearly that was someone predicted the usage of that being amped up a little bit in the game, and clearly that was the bet. The guy's the best player in the organization, guys, bar none, and he showed it today, and that was huge. And it helped the quarterback settle in, make some plays on offense when needed. Guys stepped up, and there's a lot of guys. Honestly, I got to give them a high five for being Johnny on the spot, whether it was on the fumble for when the Broncos fumble the ball or our players fumble on the ball, and being in the right spot to collect those and save those, that they weren't turnovers for us. So again, you get out with the W, lot to learn, pick from, but some really good individual performances.
Great point from Anthony Becht. Irvin Charles was the first Jets player to recover a fumble. Then it was Quentin Jefferson. And look, the Jets had some lucky bounces go their way in terms of not turning the football over, in terms of turning the football over. And Quincy, when you take a look at what happened in the first half versus the second half, the Jets went into halftime down 13-8. Could have been 13-11, but the Jets weren't able to snap the ball, clock it for a Greg Zuerlein field goal attempt. Did not happen. Instead, the Jets go into halftime down 5. What did you like about the way that they adjusted during halftime and then emerged victorious by the end of the final 2 quarters?
Yeah, well, it was literally the tale of 2 halves, right? You had the first half, the first drive, I think the first 4 drives, I think they only had 20 yards. The second 4 drives, they had somewhere around 150 yards. That first drive coming out of the half, they had that 70-yard touchdown by Breece Hall. I mean, they just had a mindset shift from being in the locker room. I wish they could start that way, right? There has to be something that we can do that can turn around the ship, right? The way that they've been performing these past few weeks. But you got to be satisfied that they came out of the second half and were really ran out there with their hair on fire, right? They rode the workhorse, the Broncos, so to speak, in the backfield with Breece Hall, and they let him get as many carries as he needed to help them get that win.
Anthony, Zach Wilson last week coming off his best performance, frankly, against the Kansas City Chiefs. That was a top 10 defense. What did you make about his performance today against the Broncos defense that we talked about pregame, statistically the worst in the NFL?
Yeah, it was suitable. I think, you didn't see the catastrophic, disastrous play. Obviously, there was an interception late in the game that gave the Broncos a chance. But in that moment, Garrett Wilson kind of gets in front of the DB, goes through his arms, maybe try to play DB there, make that catch. We've seen him do it before, but, it was a turnover and a fantastic grab between the legs by the Broncos defender. But overall, I thought, he connected when needed. That big throw and the protection was outstanding to Conklin. That was a big kind of turnover in the field possession, just kind of moving the ball down the field. But really today, guys, was about the run game. There's a lot of guys nicked up, a lot of moving parts on the offensive line, more than ever at this point. But when it mattered, Breece Hall was able to find some holes. And when he gets to the second level, we know what the damage that he can do with his legs. So, again, just, turnovers are always the biggest thing. And there were some others on the other side, of other phases and aspects of the game. But when you look at Zach's performance, it was suitable. So no touchdown passes. That right before the half, that, to me, that's quarterback slash, play caller there, just making sure guys are on the same page on what needs to be done with no timeouts left. And again, red zone offense has to be much better, guy. Field goals, you're glad you came away with points, but you got to find ways to punch it in. This game really shouldn't have been that close for most of the game if you take advantage of half of those red zone opportunities. And the penalties, to me, were atrocious, especially in the first half. Just kind of disjointed. It just didn't look right. And I think almost both teams were feeding into the bad of each other that made that first half so bad.
Back just quickly on that end of half situation, Zach Wilson completes a ball to C.J. Uzomah. They try to hustle up to the line and clock it. Time runs out, so the Jets go into the half down 13-8. What is the coaching point there from your perspective?
Well, I want to go back to the first down when that got completed. I felt like that was an opportunity to spike the ball, just to slow things down, get yourself in the maximization of plays that you wanted. In that scenario, you want to get Uzomah the ball a little bit farther, closer to the out-of-bounds area so you can catch and get out, or, get the ball out of your hands, try to strike in the end zone. But, not having enough time left to really get that ball down, that's just a very risky throw by Wilson there to really try to, get really nothing, meaningless yards. So maybe even throw it into the dirt. If you feel like you don't have anything in the end zone, you just throw it at Uzomah's feet, stops the clock, and then you're good to go. So again, those things have to be spoken in the headsets. All right, you got to have a plan. Always got to be thinking a play or two forward. Again, going back to that first down, I would have spiked it. Why not? Stop the clock. You got second down. You're already in field goal position. Get yourself some really good plays, and maybe you can punch it in and get a score.
We were talking about Breece Hall earlier. Take a look at this, guys. You're taking a look at Hall's rushing stats. He had 177 rushing yards today. That's a career high for him. He accounted for 177 of the team's 234 rushing yards. And really, when you take a look at the split here, he had 23 yards up the gut, 49 on the left side, 105 up the right side of the offensive line. And of course, he had that long 72-yard touchdown run that came on the first play of the Jets' first possession in the second half. But Quincy, I think something that Beck mentioned that we should talk about is Elijah Vera-Tucker and this Jets offensive line had some moving pieces up front. AVT left the game. Max Mitchell ended up finishing it. And Robert Saleh said he's a little concerned about AVT's status moving forward.
Yeah, it feels like the same old story, and you feel for the fan base, you feel for the team as well. Last year there was injuries in the offensive line, so for them to be more injuries, especially with such a promising player in AVT, you hope that he can come back pretty quickly. We don't know what the status is right now, but the hope is that, it doesn't take too long for him to come back because this offensive line was really kind of getting a groove and really kind of gelling well. They 2 games under their belt, really showing that the run game can pick up and become better, giving Zach enough time to really make the passes that he needed to make. So you don't want to see more switching up going forward.
Totally agreed. And Mekhi Becton was in and out of the game. Billy Turner came in for a couple snaps, but Mekhi ended up finishing the game. Joe Tippmann exited late. Robert Saleh said he's fine. He could have checked back in if he wanted to. And actually, Caroline Hendershot caught up with Zach Wilson after the game. This is what he had to say.
Here with quarterback Zach Wilson. Zach, offense off to a little bit of a slow start today, but how good was it having Breece Hall back in the run game once you found that run game?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, we got to start faster. That's the goal. We got to find a way, but it's always great to get a win. We have to learn. I thought it was more of our style in that second half. The run game came alive, and so we need to rely on those guys, and they did it. Breece did a great job, but the guys up front did an awesome job opening up for him, too.
What about this defense today? They were out and about all over the field and helping the offense in every way they could.
Yeah, awesome. A lot of 3 and outs. Obviously, the big stop right there at the end. We got to be better for those guys offensively, too, but a great team effort all the way around for us tonight.
There was a lot of external noise heading into this game. How good does this win feel?
Awesome. We needed this one. Big win. But we got a big one next week we got to focus on now.
Awesome.
Zach Wilson, back-to-back games, completing over 70% of his passes. But that right there was the man of the hour for the Jets offense. 22 carries, a season high, 177 yards, a career high for Breece Hall. He had the 72-yard touchdown. He also had 3 receptions for 17 yards against the Broncos today. now it's time for our telestration powered by Microsoft. Quincy, take us through the Breece Hall touchdown.
Yeah, so this was a great example of great team football here. You know, you're going to see these guys really putting in all efforts to make sure that Breece gets this touchdown. Breece will get all the credit, but the rest of these guys really played a great game right here. So what you're going to see is 3 guys, hats on hat. That's what we say, hat on hat. These 3 guys are going to go through the hole, create the largest hole I've ever seen, right? What they say, semi-truck can fit through there. 1, 2, 3. All these guys getting hat on hat, and then you just see Breece's speed. And then look at the effort from behind, right? Gibson also running them down. I mean, Breece Hall got on his Bronco and was out of there, right?
Wow, look at that
Jets country, Jets country, let's ride. So it's just a great play. I just want to play it one more time. These guys did a great job. Every time, you want to see this every week. These guys got to make sure that they're playing fast, playing strong. Not only are these guys on the front side, like I said, playing strong, but then on the back, right? We got a pancake right here. We got a big man pancake right in the back. It's just a great play overall.
Look, I'm sure offensive linemen like pancakes all times of the day. Breakfast,
Absolutely.
lunch, and dinner. That was a great wordplay by you, Breece Hall on his Bronco. Career-high rushing yards for Breece Hall. And speaking of the man of the hour, EA caught up with him after the game.
Breece Hall, you insisted coming into this game it was just another football game. How do you feel afterwards now?
It was good. I approached it the same way I approach every week. And, you know, I feel like some people were trying to make it bigger than what it was, but it was just another football game to me. You know, injuries happen all the time and stuff like that, so I don't look at it as, oh, this is a mysterious place or anything like that, you know. It was good to come out here. We were pissed about the loss last week. We felt like we should have won, and we just got back to the drawing board, had a good practice this week, and came out and got the win.
What does it mean to you to go for a career high 177 yards in this place?
It was good. I was just happy we won. And, you know, the coach talked about taking me off the pitch count and everything, so it was just a matter of time, to be honest. And I felt like we still had a great group of backs to compliment me. Dalvin and MC still played their tails off today. The O-line played their tails off. Tight ends, receivers, everybody did their thing today, so it was good. We still felt like we left some points out there because we got to the red zone too many times to only have, we had 24 points today?
Well, 31, you finished it up, but obviously the defensive touchdown at the end.
I ain't going to count that, though. We should have scored a lot more points today.
What about the 72-yarder in the third quarter? Do you think the game totally flipped at that point?
Yeah, it was a few times that I got up and I felt like I was just a broken tackle away from breaking some runs. So I was kind of talking to their coaching staff a lot, like, all right, like, I'm coming. And I've been setting the safeties up all day, just trying to cut back. And I was like, all right, if I break it again, I'm going to just beat them with speed. And the safety was playing me for the cutback, and I just ran right past him.
Can you talk about your confidence level? Because I did watch you looking at the sideline over there, pointing to the Broncos sideline and saying, hey, it's just 1 inch away.
Yeah. I'm always confident when I run the ball. You know, as a running back, I feel like I can get it every play and do whatever I want with it. So that's just how it is. But as a running back, you always get confidence when you see your O-line is blocking it for 4 and you go get 8 or 12. So that's a big confidence booster, just knowing that they're winning their one-on-ones today. Tight ends are winning their one-on-ones, and receivers are blocking their tails off and holding on. So it was good.
How do you think guys stepped up along that offensive line when AVT went down? And you saw Makai going out a couple times, and he battled back.
Yeah, it was good. You know, we had already kind of – I don't want to say we prepared for injuries, but, you know, we went through a lot of different groups through training camp and stuff just to have everybody familiar playing with each other and everything like that. So, you know, it sucks that they both went down. Gladly Makai was able to come back in. But, you know, I feel bad for AVT. We need him. We definitely need him on the O-line. But it was good for, you know, those guys to step in, and we didn't have a drop-off.
How about the team victory? Everybody contributed today. You got a special teams turnover early. That sets you guys up for the first points. Al Woods with the safety. And then late, Quincy Williams, unbelievable possession at the end there, sets up Bryce Hall on the fumble recovery. Scoop and score.
Yeah, the defense did their thing today. And I don't know, I still felt like we could have done a lot better. I feel like we left some stuff out there. So we played good, but it wasn't – I still don't think it was up to our standard yet.
Congrats.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great stuff from EA and Breece Hall. You take a look at the splits here. The Jets outgained the Broncos 407 to 267. Obviously, the Jets had a huge game on the ground, 235 yards rushing. Breece Hall, like we said earlier, accountable for 177 of those. That is a career high for the second-year player. Number to improve, though, the Jets only 25% on third down. Let's head to Denver to check in with EA. EA, I want to start with Quincy Williams. 2 sacks in the final moments here of the Jets win. What have you made of the way that he played today and really his whole season?
Well, didn't Jets defensive coordinator Jeff Albrecht set the table earlier this week when he said that no linebacker in the National Football League is playing better than Quincy Williams? And when the Jets needed to close the door late, Russell Wilson had the ball in his hands. Who was all over the place? That was number 56, getting to Russell Wilson for a sack. And then he comes up with the strip sack that is recovered for a scoop and score by Bryce Hall. You got to feel good for Bryce Hall, by the way, making his first start of the season with DJ Reed in concussion protocol, and also Brandon Echols out of the lineup with a hamstring injury. So he gets into the end zone, and the Jets secure a big road victory.
9 tackles on the day for Quincy Williams. EA, I feel like in this whole game, maybe a little bit of a sloppy performance on both sides of the ball, but I do think there was a glimpse of this Jets defense when playing with the lead that we haven't seen this season, and that defense looked tenacious.
Yeah, good point. I thought the Jets weren't at their best in the first half, and they went into intermission down again. You saw the defense give up an early touchdown on the Broncos' first offensive possession. You're talking about a couple of good things they did in the first half, but offensively, no third down conversions, and they had an opportunity to score late. And unfortunately, C.J. Uzomah was tackled in bounds, and the Jets went into the break on a little bit of a low, but the whole game changed, and you guys have talked about it throughout the show, when Breece Hall takes it to the house. Breece Lightning, Breece the Beast, 72 yards. And then the Jets played with a lead, and you saw Jermaine Johnson all over the place. You saw Bryce Hall in the offensive backfield. You saw the linebackers getting sideline to sideline. That's what you want to see from this Jets defense. I think at one point, Greens, myself and you were talking about it in the second half, that the Broncos had 1 yard of total offense in between the third quarter and midway through the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it's a great point. This Jets defense really looked good in that stretch before making a little bit of a comeback that the Broncos did. I'm curious, how much did the crowd play a factor in today's game, just overall, with the ebbs and flows of the game, because it felt like the Broncos were streaky and the Jets as well?
Yeah, it's a good point. I was just talking to our great Sarah Conte here, and she was on the field throughout the game and said the decibels were really going up at times, but the Jets took that Broncos crowd out of the game largely for much of that second half, when they took control on Hall's long run, and then the offense started finding rhythm and the Jets started getting off the field. So it's big any time in the National Football League when you go on the road and you secure a victory. The Jets needed this one heading into a big matchup against the defending NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles at their place next week. Now you have an opportunity to get to 3-3 before the bye. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, it would be big for the Jets. It's big to be 2-3 right now, heading into a tough matchup next week. EA kind of felt like deja vu a little bit towards the end of this game, one possession game before the Jets secured it. Unfortunately, does feel a little bit like deja vu for Elijah Vera-Tucker, who exited the game, walked to the locker room. Is there any update on him, who tore his triceps last year at Denver, and this year uncertain what his injury status is moving forward?
Yeah, we're on the field just a couple minutes after this one ended, and AVT, what we know is obviously he was ruled out with a calf injury, and they quickly ruled him out. Hopefully the Jets can get some good luck there. Max Mitchell's got some starting experience. Obviously, he finished the game on in AVT's place. At left tackle, we saw Mekhi Becton battle injury to that right knee, but he finished the game, so that was a positive sign. But AVT is such a versatile performer for this team. You're hoping long run he's going to be okay.
Great stuff, EA. Safe flight back, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Creeds.
You're watching Jets Overtime, presented by SiriusXM. Ethan Greenberg, Quincy Nunua here in the Audi Performance Studio. Let's bring back in Anthony Becht, AB. Coach Becht, we'll start with you. Bring us through your report card today, the offense, defense, and special teams.
Yeah, well, first offense, I go B-. The run game was awesome. I mean, anytime you rush for over 200 yards, you should have enough to play off of that in the passing game. Zach Wilson was, again, even keel throughout the game, didn't make a major mistake, did have the pick at the end. There was some penalties, some disconjointing things happening in the first half that you don't want to see. But all in all, and you see that guy there, Garrett Wilson, and only 4 targets in the first half. I think 1 catch. And then, of course, he had that big catch there. You got to find ways to get that man the ball. I was thinking more play actions could have been utilized in this game when you have Breece Hall in the backfield who ran for all those yards. Defensively, I give him an A-. I mean, listen, guys, you talk about Russell Wilson, you're on the road, all those things. They shut that man down. He did beat him a little bit in their legs, and that's going to happen. We were expecting that. He's done it to a lot of teams. He probably get a little more concerted effort this game to make that happen. But all in all, getting to the football, turnovers, all those things, scoring on defense, you really hit that all off, especially for the back end, a few guys that were banged up in this football game. So it was good to see the defense show up and close the game out at the end. Special teams, C-. Xavier Gipson is an exciting punt returner. There's no question about it. You got to secure the football. Most important thing, doesn't matter what you do as a punt returner, you have to catch, secure, and then let those big plays happen with ball security at all times. Ball hit the ground way too much. Shout out on the field goals. Obviously, you didn't get in the red zone with touchdowns. You got 5 field goals in this game, but you can't lose the football. Will McDonald was Johnny on the spot on one of them, and of course, obviously another one hit the ground as well. So again, you look at the special teams, C-. You can improve there, but there was some positive things in the kicking game that happened for the field goals in this football game.
Beck, I just wanted to follow up something on the offense, specifically about Zach Wilson. Tyler Conklin led the Jets today, 67 yards. How sustainable is it for this offense to rely on a running game like today and then hit chunk plays, 37 yards to Tyler Conklin, 32 yards to Garrett Wilson as examples?
Yeah, very sustainable. Listen, you're going to stop the run. What do you have to do, right? You got to put another guy in the box. You can't just sit back there. And then you start hitting some passes, some play action things and stuff of that nature. It makes it tough, but a running game, yeah, you could shut it down, but eventually, you're going to have to make some plays at the quarterback position. I just think in general, Breece Hall is the kind of back that understands how to run with 8 guys in the box. I mean, he's just a really good back. I was going to save this for the end, but there's a reason why, guys like Breece Hall and quite frankly, Brock Purdy, and not to bring an outsider in, but you're talking about guys that have played close to 40 starts in their career. Breece Hall has over 720 carries in college. When he got to the league, man, vision, where to find holes, all that stuff's easy. And it only gets bigger because when he was in college, everybody knew he was getting the ball in the building. There was no surprise. He's been dealing with 8, 9-man fronts his entire college career, and he broke it off his entire time. Same thing with Brock Purdy, 40 plus 50 starts in their career. These guys have been through situations. They've been through blitz pickups. They've been through looks. There's nothing that you can put on the field in the NFL that's going to make them look or seem not confident in what they do. And it shows up every week with both guys, and in particular, Breece Hall. So you look at him, and sometimes he comes off as if, feed me the ball, and, the subtle, it isn't arrogance, but he knows what he's doing, man. To me, he's a top 3 back in this league because he gets it. He understands how to find the space that he needs. He knows how to read blocks. Very important for a back. Sometimes back get the ball, and you look at him, you're like, where the heck are you running? He very rarely makes a mistake in where he hits his angles and where he sticks his foot in the ground. You can't pay for that, guys. That's experience. That's getting the ball a lot in college. He's taking care of his body. He's bounced back. And now he looks like the guy that came from Iowa State, and the draft pick and the speed and all that stuff looks like it's coming together really nicely for him.
Yeah, so first off, AV, man, talk about a homer for Iowa State. I can't wait till Nebraska's good because you won't hear the end of it. But, man.
You're the last guy that made it to the NFL, I think, from Nebraska. So
yeah, right. We got some ballers. Don't worry about it. Listen. Let me get my grades in. So, for my offense grade, I give them a B-. I give them a B-. I think the run game really put them up where I wanted them to be. A win is always going to improve the grades for me. I thought overall Zach played a solid game. There wasn't any, like AB said, there wasn't any crazy plays. There wasn't any shock plays. That last interception, obviously you want that back. You obviously want that play going into halftime back as well. But you're going to have those plays, right? You can't expect a perfect game. Even last week, it was so great. It still wasn't a perfect game. So, I'm not going to knock him too much. I give him a B- here. Then I'm going to go to defense. For the defense, I gave them a B+, just because I wanted to see a little bit more in the beginning. I know this is kind of their MO, is to, kind of see what you were doing in the first half and then come out in the second half and really kind of shut things down. It's kind of what their MO has been throughout the time that Salah's been here. But I think it kind of makes it a little bit closer than a lot of us want it to be. So I gave them a B+ there. And then special teams, a B-. So, great punt average, 5 for 5 on field goals, but obviously, 2 fumbles, luckily 1 is recovered, but, we just can't have that on the special team side. And, AB, that's how you keep it brief, baby.
Look, I totally understand and agree with Anthony Becht on the Xavier Gipson side, but Quincy, how much of a benefit is it for the Jets to have a model of consistency at kicker and punter like Greg Zuerlein and Thomas Morstead, especially with an offense that up until these past couple of weeks really trying to find its footing?
Absolutely, right? That's what you kind of need. You want every week to go into a game and not have to worry about special teams. So when you have 2 veterans like that can go into the game and you can feel confident, I mean, you don't even have to look. Who is it? The Eagles coach that doesn't even look at their kicker? Coach Salah doesn't have to look if he doesn't want to, because it's going to go in most times.
Look, what you just mentioned was Nick Sirianni and Jake Elliott, who the Jets will see both of those players next week. And when you're taking a look at the scoring summary of this game, the Jets, like I said, got out to their first lead of the 2023 regular season, 3-0, after Irvin Charles forces a fumble on the opening possession after a 3-and-out. And then the Jets scored 23 points in the second half, including the icing on the cake of Bryce Hall, scoop and score, who was playing for DJ Reed, and Caroline Hendershot caught up with Hall after the game.
Here with Bryce Hall. Bryce, walk me through the Quincy forced fumble, and then you pick up the ball and you bring it to the end zone.
Yeah, it was crazy. Quincy made a heck of a play to strip the ball out, and, I was running. I knew, we had to, obviously defend the field goal and stuff like that. And, as soon as I was getting my eyes back, obviously Russell, he's a scrambler, so I was anticipating him getting out the pocket. And then I just saw Quincy make a heck of a play, and so I saw the ball on the ground. So I went and ran and scooped it up, and I was like, okay, I see you, God. Like, this is a really cool moment. So I just scooped it up, and probably should have took a knee, but it's all good, yeah.
What about this defensive effort as a whole from this group today? They really showed out in the second half once again.
Yeah. Man, I think this group is just so special, and we saw that. I felt like the D-line, they just took over, and they said that they were going to do that. And, I just want to shout out, too, to, our coaches like Brick, our defensive coordinator. He did a heck of a job calling the game. He's just always been so locked in. He does everything he can to put us in the best positions. I felt like he did a magnificent job of doing that today and put us in positions to really make plays today. And then, obviously shout out to T.O. He did an amazing job for us as corners, just preparing us. He treats me like I'm starting every week. So when I got my opportunity to play today, it was like nothing, didn't miss a beat. And so it's just really cool to come out here and be around this group of guys. They've just been dominating ever since I've been here. It's just cool to see them elevate each week. And then, super shout out to Coach Salah, who's leading the whole entire group. Each day he comes to work, he gives us timely messages. He continues to push us to another level, and he sees that we can be, really, really special on defense. And so they keep challenging us. So just really shout out to our coaches and the men in this room. I just can't say enough about how cool it is to be a part of it. If it's, however long that, I'm on the field, get the opportunity, I'm just super grateful for that moment. And so, it was just really cool to be a part of that.
Awesome. Appreciate the time, Bryce.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great games from both Halls, including Bryce Hall, who we just heard from, and he was the guy that put the icing on the cake. The Jets now 2-3, partly because of that man right there, Quincy Williams, 2 sacks in the final minutes, and then Bryce Hall scoops and scores. Final score 31-21 out in Denver. We're here in Florham Park. Quincy Enunwa, Ethan Greenberg here in the Audi Performance Studio. You're watching Jets Overtime. It's time for Socially Speaking. And this is what we're going to fire it up with, okay? Because it's an exciting day if you're a Jets fan now, 2-3. Quinnen Williams shouting out his brother, Quincy Williams. He's saying, look, that's a first-team All-Pro linebacker right there. Quincy, here in the studio, it's hard to disagree with that, right?
Oh, no, absolutely. This guy is playing with his hair on fire. He's one of the best linebackers in the league. I heard him say he's the fastest, and, I mean, who's beating him now?
All right, let's move on here to MC2. Simply put, great team win. Nice game for Michael Carter II. And now let's move on to Sauce Gardner. AB, I want to get your opinion on this. Little shade here from number 1 saying Jets country, let's ride. Do we like that, AB?
Is that how he said it in his tweet there?
Oh, yes, it is.
That little twang there, like another quarterback on the other side. Yeah, I mean, listen, obviously, before the game and after the game, when they could remember why they were doing some of these things, is because of the whole Hackett situation. And clearly, after and before the game, there was a lot. There was a speech before. You could read lips on the sideline with Hackett. Obviously, he wanted to take it to him. They were able to kind of converge. He got the hug. So, yeah, they were thinking about it. It was a big deal in-house. There's no question. Like I said, behind the closed doors, they're talking about it because that's just what they do. Everybody gets sensitive. But it was good. It was good to see them kind of come out of there. The 31 points, guys, and only scoring 1 offensive touchdown is pretty amazing, too.
Yeah.
So, it was a good team victory for this team to pull it out on the road.
And let's hear from another member of the Jets secondary. DJ Reed did not play with a concussion. He said, great team win. And, of course, DJ Reed, if you're a Jets fan, you're hoping he's able to play next week when the Jets take on the Eagles, who have a very talented receiving core. How about another guy who did not play against the Denver Broncos? Aaron Rodgers, simply put, W, period, hashtag Hackett, the heart emoji with the empty hashtag at the end of it. Ian Rappaport chimes in as well, and he said, how sweet is this? After practice on Fridays, the Jets always announce their 4th captain. This week, it was offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett. When Coach Saleh called it out, players went crazy today after beating his old team against the Broncos. Hackett got the game ball. Quincy, no surprise there for the Jets, huh?
Yeah, definitely. And I think he appreciated it. I think the team appreciated it. And there's a little bit more fire for this game. I mentioned in the beginning, I wore the suit. They came through. The funeral happened just like I said it would. But let's talk about Aaron Rodgers real quick, man. He tweets like an old man sometimes, man. You can't have that empty hashtag there, man. Come on, you got to delete that.
I think that's his thing.
Come on, man.
Period.
Yeah, come on, man. You got to delete that, man. You paying for Twitter, I think. Just backspace. Edit the tweet. Come on, man.
Beck, you're out on Aaron Rodgers' style of tweeting too.
Man's got deep pockets. He can say do whatever he wants. You know what I'm saying? So,
look, we saved the best for last.
Would be nice, though. Little guidance.
It would be nice. We saved the best for last here, courtesy of the New York Jets. And you talk about shade. We talked about it earlier with Sauce Gardner saying Jets country, let's ride. This is when you lose to, quote, the offseason champs. Remember, that's what Sean Payton called the New York Jets. And that right there is Kevin James, a Jets fan who played Sean Payton in a movie called Home Team, photoshopped in a Broncos uniform. Quincy, this is tough, man.
Yeah, no, the Jets social team, man, they come through it. I've seen some other teams, social teams. I don't know if they're working with the Jets, though. They're different.
Beck, what did you think of the shade?
Kevin James, he's becoming a pretty popular meme across the board. There's some other ones floating around that people are using, but listen, you have a little fun. They're not in your division. You don't have to worry about playing them again. Yeah. So you can kind of end it on that note. And again, that's one that was saved in the drafts, and you're able to kind of push it forward after the game because of the W.
Look, if you're a Jets admin and you're happy to push send on that tweet, you feel good about it, you slam the laptop down, you see what happens. I think that got a pretty good response on social. That was Socially Speaking. AB, let's move on to game balls. And, I think you kind of tipped your hand earlier, so I think we know where you're going with this, but I'll do you the courtesy of asking anyway. Who is your game ball being awarded to?
Breece Hall. I've been talking about it for the last couple weeks. They finally kind of let him go. It's almost like letting a quarterback let him eat, right? Well, you let Breece Hall eat, and he backed it up. He's been kind of spooning his mouth in the last couple games and hasn't been able to get the carries that he wants. Listen, guys, I don't care how you cut it up. 177 yards is a lot of damn rushing yards in a football game, especially in these NFL times with the passing games the way they are. And the strengths of defenses in the box and at the defensive line, it's just a hell of an effort. And I feel like it's kind of similar. Like he is on the verge every time, every game he plays. If he gets the touches, I feel like this is what you're going to see. Maybe not 177, but he sure as hell going to get you 100.
Yeah, Breece Hall is a great choice right there. I think the second best choice in this game would have been Quincy Williams, right? Like 9 tackles, 2 forced fumble, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and the biggest play of the game, honestly, right? Because during that drive, the Broncos could have drove down, scored, and that could have been the end of the game. So for him to still be playing at such a high level at the end of the game, and he's not a D lineman, right? So he doesn't come out of the game. He's not doing the rotations. He's playing all snaps, and he's covering guys. He's making sure that his guys locked down. He's making sure that his space is locked down. He's filling the holes, filling the gaps, and sacking the quarterback and giving Bryce Hall an opportunity to be the winner, right? To be the guy that, gets to hoist the ball up and say, I made a big play this game. Quincy Williams, all-pro linebacker. And this guy, it just keeps getting better every week.
And also, Quincy Williams, a waiver claim of Joe Douglas, just something to keep in mind. Also, really cool moment for Bryce Hall. One, starting for the first game this season with Brandon Eccles and DJ Reed out. Remember, late in this game, Bryce Hall was flagged for holding on a two-point conversion. The Broncos did not convert. Then they do convert, and then he's able to have a little bit of redemption with the scoop and score. Now, moving on here for our final takeaway on Jets Overtime presented by SiriusXM. I wanted to look ahead here a little bit, because we mentioned it earlier. The Jets now 2-3, taking on the Philadelphia Eagles next week at MetLife Stadium. AB, when you look at the totality, like 20/20 hindsight of the importance of this game today, we touched about it a little bit in pregame. How important was this win? And now building off a solid performance against the Chiefs, although a loss, a road win, now going into one more game before the bye. Just how important was it to get a victory under this team's belt?
Yeah, it was a must-have, right? I mean, they're all important. Quincy talked about that, but you look at how the schedule's built. You have arguably the best team in football next week. Now you have a bye after them, so you can go out because you got this victory and throw everything in the kitchen sink at them, because you can't go out and roll out with this team and drop punts. You can't go out and have 3 and outs and all. You're going to lose. You cannot make mistakes against the Eagles. They're that good on all aspects, on all phases. They're undefeated. They're undefeated for a reason. They got good play callers. Their coaching is on point. He's very aggressive. And, they got that tush push, whatever it is, all that stuff is coming. So, you got to be prepared. And if, one mistake, 2 mistakes, forget it. You're not going to be in this game in the fourth quarter. So you got to button up a lot of the stuff here the last couple weeks that we've seen. But just like we say any week, any given Sunday, a team can go down. And I can't sit here and tell you that there's no way the Jets can beat the Eagles, because they can. But I can say this, the Eagles will not go down without a fight every single time, because they are playing with a supreme confidence right now that they just won't lose a game.
And the Eagles today won on the road in L.A. Final score 23-14. Jalen Hurts, 72 rushing yards, 303 passing yards. 2 Eagles receivers, 1 receiver, 1 tight end, both over 100 yards. Going to be a tough matchup. But in the moment right now, Robert Saleh and the Jets move to 2-3. And here's Coach Saleh with his victory speech after the game.
All right, here we go. Next out, man. Hey, really, really good job. All right. Obviously, that first half didn't go the way we wanted it to. To come out in the second half the way we did, really good all the way across the board. Being resilient, making happen, winning a football game. How about offense? 234 yards rushing. 177 from Breece. There's a lot of good things we can talk about with regards to these stats, but I got one game ball. Yes!
You guys know it's an honor to be with you guys. Watching that defense go out there, sack him, get turnovers, it's absolutely beautiful. Watching this offense run that ball. Breece, that is tough. Hey, it's only the beginning. We all could get better. Myself included. I just appreciate all you, man, especially as I get to know you guys. Appreciate you. Let's get Jets on 3. Jets on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Really cool scene there post-game in the Jets locker room. Anthony, before we let you go here, I just want to ask you, in your experience as a player, when you have just kind of the whole team rallying around one player, one coach, how special of a moment is it to be on the winning side of that kind of game where there is some kind of public beef going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a common thing, right? I mean, but it is kind of, there was a storyline to it. Listen, it wasn't the best time and Nathaniel Hackett's, growing career as a coach, for whatever reason, whatever went down in Denver. But, when you add fuel to the fire, obviously, you take it to heart, man. You never want people talking about you. And he has an opportunity here with the Jets to rectify that. He's got his team behind him. He's a very likable coach. The players really like him. And, clearly he's got a man crush with Aaron Rodgers, which is great. Those guys are tight. And, it's kind of cool, honestly. And it kind of gets, redemption for Nathaniel deep down inside. I mean, he says all the right things in the public eye, but that stuff, no one wants to hear those things, man. And you want your players to go out there. And as a coach on the other side is you don't know how your players are going to play, right? Nothing's guaranteed. You can call the best plays, but sometimes the plays don't work because for whatever reason, things happen, penalties, all these different circumstances. So when it kind of comes together in the end, in particular the second half with this offense, it was nice to see it kind of get where it needs to be. They put up enough points and they got the W. So, yeah, it is kind of a special moment when you have those kind of situations.
AB, great stuff. As always, we'll check in with you next week when the Jets take on the Eagles. Let's wrap up here in studio, Quincy. Two-part question. One, kind of going off of what Anthony and we were just talking about, like how special of a moment is that? Just like a galvanizing win. Obviously, the public perception of the Nathaniel Hackett, Sean Payton drama wasn't the same as what was going on inside the locker room. So I want to get your opinion on that. And then lastly, just kind of point blank, like if you're a Jets fan, what is the most encouraging takeaway from your opinion about today's victory?
Yeah, well, I think you can say this is very similar to last week, right? Zach Wilson had a pretty tough week prior to playing the Chiefs, and he really showed out. And everybody, even though they didn't have that win, I think everybody was really happy to see Zach get a win personally through his play, right? So this week you have Nathaniel Hackett. Not only was he fired after 1 year, but he also had some comments being made by the current coach about his performance while he was there. So, you don't like to see that about your guys. You don't care who it is, when it's in-house, when it's family, and you're making comments about my family, it becomes personal, right? So a lot of guys really went out in that game and made sure that they were doing these things for Nathaniel Hackett. They were playing hard for him. And hopefully they can carry that same energy throughout the season. Now, as far as the second point, I think the fans can be happy about the win and also about how hard these guys played towards the end of the game. Again, we talk about it all the time, finishing. The thing that we want to see going forward is for them to start strong, but to finish, that's the best thing, right? Because at the end of the year, the Super Bowl is the finish that you want, and that's when you know you've finished really strong. So if they can continue this effort throughout the year, defense continue to show up, and Zach continue to not make major mistakes that put this team behind the 8 ball, this is more than enough to play good football.
I totally agree. And if you're a Jets fan, Breece Hall definitely on the right track after 22 for $177. Zach Wilson now back-to-back games where you can really see tangible evidence of him getting better. Again, a very difficult opponent next on the schedule in the Philadelphia Eagles, but the Jets right now move to 2-3 after taking down the Denver Broncos in Denver for the second straight year. Final score 31-21, and we'll see you next Sunday.